Welcome back to Insects for Fun. I'm your host, Mitchell Logan, and today we're talking about craneflies, also known as daddy longlegs, mosquito hawks, skeeter eaters, golly nippers, golly whoppers, and in Ireland, skinny Phillips. We're going to debunk every myth you've ever heard about these gangly, clumsy, totally harmless insects, learn about the surprisingly wild life happening below your lawn right now, and meet the one man who dedicated his entire life to cataloging them. Craneflies belong to the superfamily Typoloidea, within the order Diptera, true flies, same as houseflies, mosquitoes, and no-see-ums. They're divided into 4 living families: Typulidae, Limonidae, Pedicidae, and Cylindrotomidae. Most people, when they say cranefly, they're picturing the large, gangly, mosquito-looking ones, which fall under Typulidae. This is also the largest family in the group. And just how many species are we talking? Well, there's over 15,700 described species of craneflies across more than 500 genera, making them one of the largest and most ancient lineages of flies on the planet. They show up on every continent, are most diverse in the tropics, and have been around since the Middle Triassic, about 245 million years ago. That means craneflies were bumbling into cave walls long before dinosaurs existed. The name cranefly comes from their long stilt-like legs, which evoke the long legs of a crane bird. In terms of size, they are wildly variable. Some species have bodies just a millimeter long, while the largest tropical species can have leg spans of over 25 centimeters or nearly 10 inches. As one entomologist put it, the smallest cranefly in the world could probably stand on the head of the biggest cranefly. I will make sure to have pictures on the Instagram so you guys can check it out. So before we go any further, we need to address the name situation because it is actually chaotic and explains why so many people are confused about what these insects are and aren't. In the United States, craneflies are commonly called mosquito hawks or skeeter eaters, names that imply they eat mosquitoes, which they do not. But we're going to come back to that. They're also sometimes called daddy longlegs in the US, but that name is more commonly used for harvestmen, the arachnids in the order Apiliones, or cellar spiders. In the UK, Ireland, and most English-speaking countries outside the US, craneflies are in fact the daddy longlegs. That's their name, full stop. Which means the daddy longlegs are the most venomous insect in the world myth gets applied to both craneflies and spiders depending on who's telling the story, because no one can agree on what a daddy longleg actually is. In Scotland, they're sometimes called Jenny longlegs, and in Ireland, the Irish name is Skinny Phillip, which I mentioned at the top of the episode. Other regional names in the US include golly nipper, golly whopper, and my personal runner-up, ginger snapper. The English language really went off with this one. Okay, so now we're really going to do some myth busting. There are 3 big ones that follow craneflies everywhere, and these 3 are completely false. Myth number 1, they're giant mosquitoes. No, the key giveaway is the mouth parts. Mosquitoes have a long needle-like proboscis for piercing skin. Craneflies have either very short, simple mouth parts, or in many species, no functional mouth parts at all. They literally cannot bite you even if they wanted. They're also way bigger than any mosquito, move completely differently, and don't make that high-pitched whine. The resemblance is superficial at best. Myth number 2, they eat mosquitoes. Okay, this one is everywhere and it is completely made up. Cranefly adults don't have the mouth parts to hunt anything, and many don't eat at all. They live entirely off energy reserves built up during the larval stage. A few species do sip nectar or water, but none of them are out there hunting mosquitoes on your behalf. Unfortunately, you're on your own. Myth number 3, they're the most venomous insect in the world. Okay, we talked a little bit about this earlier, and the urban legend is so widespread that teachers and documentary producers have repeated it as fact. Craneflies have zero venom, and they cannot pierce human skin. The myth likely comes from the name confusion with cellar spiders, which do have venom, though even cellar spider venom is nothing special for humans. Craneflies are about as dangerous as a piece of soggy spaghetti. And while we're here, that pointed tail on females is not a stinger. That's an ovipositor, the egg-laying organ she uses to deposit eggs in damp soil, completely harmless. So, one of the most notable things about craneflies is those absurdly long, delicate legs, and the fact that they seem to just fall off constantly. Touch one and a leg detaches. Catch one and it leaves two behind. So what's going on here? This is actually a deliberate defense mechanism called autotomy. The ability to voluntarily shed a body part. It's the same trick lizards use with their tails. When a predator grabs a cranefly by the leg, that leg detaches cleanly, and the confused predator is left holding a twitching limb while the cranefly makes its escape. The downside is that unlike a lizard's tail, this leg will not grow back. Once it's gone, it's gone. But given that cranefly adults only live for about 10 to 15 days, surviving long enough to mate is really the only goal here. Losing a leg is completely acceptable, especially if it means living another day to find a partner. Now, their flight is also notoriously terrible. Craneflies are widely considered the worst flyers of all fly species. Their legs are so disproportionately long relative to their bodies that they create drag, resulting in that bouncy, lurching, seemingly drunk flight pattern that makes them look like they have no idea what they're doing. But technically, they're just carrying a lot of leg. Okay, now we're gonna get to the part of the episode most people don't know about. Because the adult cranefly, the thing bouncing off your ceiling, is actually the least interesting stage of its life. The real action happens underground. Cranefly larvae are called leather jackets, named for their tough grayish-brown leathery skin. They're legless, worm-like, and completely harmless looking, and they live in soil, mud, leaf litter, stream beds, decaying wood, and moss, depending on the species. They can grow up to 5 centimeters or 2 inches long, and they go through 4 larval instars before pupating. Most larvae are decomposers, breaking down dead plant material and organic matter in the soil, which is enormously useful for nutrient cycling and keeping ecosystems functional. Aquatic larvae are particularly important in stream ecosystems, shredding fallen leaves into smaller pieces that other organisms can then consume. Some species are actually predatory, hunting other invertebrates in the soil or water, and here's a fun one: some larvae have inflatable rear ends, which they use to push through soil more easily. So, a smaller number of species feed on living plant roots, and these are the ones that gardeners and farmers have issues with. In the UK and parts of the US, Tipula paludosa and Tipula oleracea, the European and marsh craneflies, are genuine agricultural pests whose larvae can devastate lawns, pastures, and crops. In 1935, leather jackets infested Lord Cricket's ground in London so severely that thousands had to be collected by hand and burned. Okay, let's move on and get more into the life cycle. Craneflies undergo complete metamorphosis: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Females mate and lay eggs within 24 hours of emerging as adults, which tells you something about the urgency of their situation. Eggs are typically deposited directly into damp soil or vegetation and are small, black, and oval-shaped. Larvae hatch within about 2 weeks and immediately begin feeding. The larval stage is by far the longest. Most species spend several months underground, with some lasting up to a full year or longer in colder climates. They overwinter as larvae too in the soil and resume feeding when spring arrives. Pupation happens just below the soil surface or in leaf litter and lasts about 2 to 4 weeks. When the adult is ready to emerge, the pupa wriggles to the surface. You can actually sometimes find the empty pupal cases sticking out of the ground after emergence, which is kind of a cool thing to look for. The adult then crawls free, expands its wings, and has approximately, again, 10 to 15 days only to find a mate before dying. It is not, as life cycles go, a leisurely one. Okay, now I have to dedicate a section to one of the most remarkable figures in entomological history, Charles Paul Alexander, also known as the Cranefly King. Alexander was born in 1889 in New York, got his PhD from Cornell University, and went on to spend 71 years, from 1910 to 1981, describing cranefly species from around the world. In that time, he published over 1,000 scientific papers, and personally described approximately 11,000 species and subspecies, along with 256 new genera. To put that in perspective, he named about one new species every single day for his entire career. He never traveled outside of North America either, but received specimens sent by collectors from every corner of the world. He spent most of his career at what is now the University of Massachusetts Amherst, which is where I went, yay! Okay, so this is where he eventually became Dean of the School of Science. His personal cranefly collection, which is absolutely enormous, is now housed at the Smithsonian Institution. The North American Dipterist Society has an award named after him, given to the greatest living North American fly specialist. Out of more than 15,700 known cranefly species today, Alexander described the majority of them. One person, one family of flies, a lifetime of work. If that's not dedication to a bit, then I really don't know what is. So beyond the myths and the name chaos, craneflies play genuinely important roles in the ecosystems they inhabit. And maybe this is part of the reason why Charles Paul Alexander wanted to spend much of his life researching them. Leather jacket larvae are a critical food source for a huge range of animals. Birds, particularly starlings, robins, crows, and rooks, will probe and tear up soil to get at them. Fish feed heavily on both larvae and adults, which is why large cranefly species are popular models for fishing lures, and dry flies in fly fishing. Now, I've actually used a lot of cranefly larvae as fly fishing lures, and they're fantastic. I can catch bluegill and black bass with generally little effort. Frogs, salamanders, spiders, praying mantises, bats, and countless other insect predators all eat cranefly adults. They are, as the saying goes, nature's chicken nuggets. Adult craneflies are also surprisingly useful as pollinators. While they're not as efficient or dedicated as bees, some species do visit flowers and transfer pollen, particularly in cool, wet environments where other pollinators are less active. In certain high-altitude and high-latitude ecosystems, craneflies may actually be among the primary pollinators available. Soil-dwelling larvae also influence the soil microbiome, the community of microorganisms living in the soil. The microbes in larval intestines contribute to nitrogen fixation and nutrient recycling, meaning craneflies are quietly helping to fertilize the ground beneath your feet. And if you're a Patreon member, then you're gonna soon learn about why nitrogen is so important. So now it's time to wrap up. Before I do, let's just do a really quick summary of what went down in this long episode. Craneflies, superfamily Typoloidea, 15,700 species named everything from Skinny Philip to Gallinapper, first appeared 245 million years ago. They're the worst flyers in the business, shed their legs on purpose, spend most of their life as underground decomposers, they can't bite, can't sting, and they definitely do not eat mosquitoes, and they are genuinely important for birds, fish, and soil health. In some places, even pollination. One man named most of them, he's a legend, And yeah, these are all the reasons why craneflies are extremely underrated. I hope the next time one of these things bonks off your ceiling at 11 p.m., you feel a little more affection for it and a little less urge to panic. It's just skinny Philip. He's having a hard enough time already. Now, as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please drop a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening on. It genuinely makes a big difference. Bonus episodes, ad-free episodes, vlogs, and other stuff can be found at patreon.com/insectsforfun. You can hit me up on IG at insectsforfun or send me an email at insectsfordummies@gmail.com with a topic you want covered. And I'll see you again next week.